Good morning, sir. Here is Jose Anthony. I'm going to explain about the scheme of the fundamental duties and its legal status. So, in the year 1976, the 42nd Amendment Act was passed, where the number of articles were passed. Among that, the 10 fundamental duties are added to the Indian Constitution. In 2002, the 86th Amendment Act was passed, where the 11th fundamental duty was added to the Indian Constitution. So, totally 11 fundamental duties are in the Indian Constitution. These 11 fundamental duties are added in Article 51A under the Part 4A of the Indian Constitution. So, these fundamental duties are necessary. So, let us see something about the fundamental duties. So, the fundamental duty is a moral regulation to the Indian citizen. So, through this, they can create the inspiration of patriotism and they can uh, get unite in the in our country. It is a attempt of balancing the individual's civil and moral freedoms. Swaran Singh Committee made these recommendations to the legislating committee. This Swaran Singh Committee was set up in 1976 by the Congress Party. So, mainly, these fundamental duties were added to the Indian Constitution because of the aim in achieving the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Because this was adapted in Japan, China, and Russia. So, our country was our country follows the same approach as Japan, China, and Russia. So there are two categories of the fundamental duties: moral duties and the civil duties. In moral duties, we have to pay respect to the principles and the ideas of the freedom strugglers. To they fight for our freedom. In civil duty, we have to respect our principle of constitution, national flag, and national anthem. We must respect. So these fundamental duties are regulated by the Supreme Court. This was um, this is to all the citizens. No one is exception from that, including president, prime minister, ministers, and all the clergies. In the first 10 fundamental duties were passed in 1976, though it was came into effect on 3rd January 1977. So we see something about Swaran Singh Committee. The Swaran Singh Committee was first led by the Indira Gandhi. The main objective of the Swaran Singh Committee is to study the uh, amending problems in amending the constitution. So by studying the queries in amending the constitution, they amend this 42nd Amendment Act. This 42nd Amendment Act was also called as mini constitution because in this 42nd Amendment Act, the preamble of our Indian constitution were added. These 10 fundamental duties was completely recommended by the Swansea Committee. In addition to this, they recommended some duties that was rejected by the legislature. The list of 11 fundamental duties are: the first one is we have to pay respect to the principles of our Indian institution, national flag, and national anthem. We have to follow the noble principles of our freedom strugglers. Third, we have to protect our unity of India and independence of India. In fourth, we have to uh, defend our country from the enemies through supporting our Indian our nation whenever it is needed. We can support. We should support. In fifth, we have to promote harmony and spirit of the common brotherhood. among the people of India to unite the people of India. In sixth, we have to pay respect and preserve the rich heritage of our India and our culture. In seventh, we have to protect the natural environment and we have to improve our natural environment. In eighth, we have to develop scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry in all reforms. In ninth, we have to safeguard the public property to abjure violence. We should not destroy any of the public property, any of the public property. In 10th, we have to support any individual or collective activity they strive towards the excellence for the betterment of our country to become a completely independent. In 11th, and the final duty is as a parent, they have to give opportunity for the education to their children between the age of 6 and 14. This duty was added in 2002 in 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. The above 10 are added in 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. The importance of the fundamental duties. They remind every citizen of India about their duty towards society, fellow citizen and nation. And the main and the most important importance of the fundamental duty are uh, they warn the Indian citizen against anti-national and anti-social activities. If we do any such activities, um, they the court might bring warnings to uh, to a particular individual, or they can take any action in arresting the person. It create the fundamental duty creates a discipline, sense of discipline among the peoples of the India. The more importantly, it helps in court in examining the constitutional validity. I explained this. Let us think of if the state might bring amendment act against the fundamental duty, the court can apologize over their amendment for prohibiting the fundamental duties. It safeguards the human right and abolition of just injustice. Facts about fundamental duties. uh, the important fact is they are non-justifiable. If a person ruling out of the fundamental duty may not justifiable in the court. The second, non-enforceable in nature. The court cannot force individual to follow the fundamental duty because it is non-enforceable. It is to the Indian citizen only, not to the foreigners. They can they can go out of the fundamental duties. The important fact of the fundamental duty is if a person bans our national flag, it is uh, just like a expression, freedom of expression in fundamental right. It is not just like that. It is not a freedom of expression. The court can arrest the person because it is non-justifiable by just saying freedom of expression. This is very similar to directive principle states, directive principles of the states. In the scenes like the non-justifiable factor. In the first point, if a state makes the law, as I said earlier, if the state makes a law on prohibiting the fundamental duty, the court may apologize the amendment and the article that prohibiting the fundamental duty. The court might bring the fundamental duty in fundamental rights and the criticism of fundamental duties. The most important criticism is the duties are not clearly explained and it is very difficult to understand by the common man. And the second major criticism is it does not including the important duties like casting vote in elections, paying taxes, and family planning and so on. The in fact, balancing committee was suggested to include paying taxes in fundamental duties. It was neglected and rejected by the legislation. Uh, the third criticism is they they have to add the fundamental duty under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution because the fundamental right was in the Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. They added fundamental duties in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution. This brings Part 4 of the Indian Constitution a value less thing, something like that, because in part 4 the articles are under the justifiable conditions, but the fundamental duties are non-justifiable, so they uh, might include this in part 4 part 3 of the Indian Constitution. The final criticism is the punishment for the non-performance of fundamental duties. It was suggested by the Swansea Committee, but it was neglected and rejected by the legislation. The conclusion is fundamental rights and duties are more or less same and are interdependent. They are the two different approaches of the same thing. So final recommendation is to court will we have to take cognition of law seeking to give effect to fundamental duties. So the court should give effect to the fundamental duty through some regulations and compensations in fundamental duties. Thank you. Thank you, sir.